Imagine standing outside a locked door, knowing that just moments earlier you were certain you would be allowed inside. You have the right place. You were waiting for the right person. You were even carrying a lamp. But then the door closes, and when you knock, the voice on the other side says something terrifying. I do not know you. That is not a horror story. Those are the words of Jesus, and they are found inside one of his most famous parables, the parable of the 10 virgins. Most Christians have heard this story. 5 were wise. 5 were foolish. The wise brought extra oil. The foolish did not. The bridegroom was delayed. Everyone fell asleep. Then, at midnight, a cry went out. The bridegroom is coming. Go out to meet him. The virgins woke up and prepared their lamps. But suddenly, the foolish discovered that their oil was running out. They asked the wise for some of theirs. The wise refused. The foolish went to buy oil. And while they were gone, the bridegroom arrived. The 5 who were ready entered the wedding celebration. Then the door was shut. Later, the other 5 returned. They cried out, Lord, Lord, open to us. But Jesus says the bridegroom answered, I do not know you. Then Jesus ends the entire parable with one sentence. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. And this is where the mystery begins. Because if you look closely, the 5 foolish virgins don't initially look like obvious unbelievers. They are not outside mocking the bridegroom. They are not refusing to attend the wedding. They are not running in the opposite direction. They are waiting. They are carrying lamps. They know the bridegroom is coming. And when the announcement is made, they immediately get up. So why weren't they ready? What did the wise virgins possess that the foolish virgins didn't? And why did Jesus make the difference so small on the surface, yet so devastating in the end? Because there is a detail in this story that is easy to read past. And once you see it, the entire parable becomes much more serious. The 10 virgins were divided into 2 groups, but they looked remarkably similar. 5 were wise. 5 were foolish. And from the outside, you might not have been able to tell them apart. Both groups had lamps. Both groups were waiting. Both groups became sleepy. Both groups heard the midnight cry. Both groups got up. But only one group was prepared for the delay. And that word mattered. The delay. Jesus deliberately says that the bridegroom was delayed. The problem wasn't that the bridegroom never came. He came later than they expected. And that changes everything. Because anyone can look prepared when the answer comes quickly. Anyone can stay faithful when life is moving exactly according to schedule. Anyone can say they are ready when the miracle happens immediately. When the prayer is answered immediately. When the breakthrough comes immediately. When everything makes sense. But what happens when heaven seems silent? What happens when the bridegroom appears to be late? What happens when your faith has to survive a season where nothing seems to be happening? That is where the 10 virgins were tested. Not during the excitement. During the waiting. And that may be one of the deepest mysteries in the entire parable. The delay revealed what preparation really meant. The foolish virgins had lamps, but they had not prepared for the waiting. And here's something even more disturbing. They didn't realize they were unprepared until it was too late. Think about that. They weren't walking around saying, we are foolish. They believed they were ready. They were simply missing something they thought they could obtain later. And that is precisely what made their situation so dangerous. Because sometimes the greatest spiritual danger isn't knowing that you're unprepared. It's believing that you're prepared when you're not. The story continues. At midnight the cry comes. The bridegroom is coming. Suddenly, everything changes. The waiting is over. The moment they've been anticipating has arrived. The wise virgins trim their lamps. The foolish realize they need oil. And they make a desperate request. Give us some of your oil. But the wise answer that they cannot. Now pause here. Why couldn't they simply share it? Why couldn't the 5 wise virgins pour some oil into the lamps of the foolish? Why does Jesus make the answer so harsh? Because the story is teaching something profound about preparation. There are things in life that other people can give you. Someone can give you advice. Someone can pray for you. Someone can teach you scripture. Someone can encourage you. Someone can introduce you to Christ. But there is a level of spiritual preparation that cannot simply be transferred from one person to another. You cannot borrow someone else's relationship with God. You cannot borrow someone else's faith. You cannot borrow someone else's obedience. You cannot borrow someone else's readiness. Your parents' faith cannot prepare you. Your pastor's faith cannot prepare you. Your spouse's faith cannot prepare you. Your church attendance cannot substitute for knowing Christ. At some point, your lamp has to be yours. And that's why the foolish virgins suddenly found themselves in a desperate situation. They had waited until the last possible moment to obtain what they should have prepared beforehand. And while they went away to buy oil, the bridegroom came, the door opened, the prepared entered, and then the door closed. That may be the most frightening moment in the entire parable. Not the midnight cry, not the empty lamps, not even the desperate request, the door closing. Because while the foolish virgins were still trying to get ready, the opportunity to get ready ended. And Jesus doesn't say the door stayed open forever. He says it was shut. Then the foolish virgins returned. They stood outside. They called, Lord, Lord, open to us. Notice their words. They call him Lord. They know who they're speaking to. They are not confused about the identity of the bridegroom. But the response is terrifying. I do not know you. And this is why this parable is not merely about being a good person. It is not simply about carrying a Bible. It is not simply about attending church. It is not even simply about knowing that Jesus is coming. The warning is about being genuinely prepared for his coming. Because according to Jesus, there will be people who expect to be ready, who discover that they aren't. And that is the mystery most people rush past. The difference between the wise and foolish was not obvious at first. The difference was revealed when the waiting became difficult. When the bridegroom was delayed, their preparation was exposed. And perhaps that's why you're watching this video right now. Maybe you're in a waiting season. Maybe you've prayed and nothing has changed. Maybe you've been asking God why he hasn't answered yet. Maybe you've wondered why the promise seems delayed. But what if the delay isn't meaningless? What if the waiting is revealing something? What if the season you desperately want to escape is exposing whether your faith depends on God's timing or on God himself? Because the 10 virgins were all waiting for the same bridegroom, but only 5 had prepared for the possibility that he might take longer than expected. And that is where the story moves from being an ancient parable to becoming deeply personal. Because Jesus didn't tell this story merely so people could understand what happened to 10 women waiting for a wedding. He told it as a warning. Therefore keep watch, not because you know exactly when he will come, but because you don't. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all. The wise virgins were not wise because they knew the exact hour. They were wise because they were ready without knowing the hour. They didn't need a date. They didn't need a countdown. They didn't need another warning. They simply lived prepared. And that raises a question every Christian should ask. If Jesus came today, would I actually be ready? Not, do I know about Jesus? Not, have I attended church? Not, do I call myself a Christian? But, do I truly know him? Because at the end of the parable, Jesus doesn't say to the foolish, you didn't know enough information. He says, I do not know you. And suddenly the entire story becomes personal. The lamp is not the most important thing. The waiting is not the most important thing. Even the midnight cry is not the most important thing. The question is whether you are ready when the bridegroom comes. Because eventually, the waiting ends. The cry will come. The door will open. And then, the door will close. So don't wait until the midnight hour to discover what you should have prepared for all along. Don't assume that because you're close to the wedding, you're ready for the bridegroom. Don't confuse familiarity with relationship. Don't confuse religious activity with spiritual readiness. And don't assume that because everyone around you looks prepared, you are prepared too. The 5 wise virgins could not give their preparation away. The 5 foolish virgins could not borrow it at the last moment. And once the door closed, there was no more time. Jesus' final words are simple. Keep watch. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Because you don't know the day. You don't know the hour. But you can choose to be ready. And perhaps that is the hidden message of the 10 virgins. The message many people miss. The greatest danger isn't that the bridegroom won't come. The greatest danger is that he will come, and you won't be ready. So while there is still time, keep your lamp burning. Stay awake. Stay faithful. And most importantly, make sure you truly know the one you are waiting for.